So I'd been doing a radio show on XFM, and I was taking some time off from it. I'd won a couple of awards. I'd won a couple of Sony awards, a silver and a gold Sony award, no big deal. I was taking some time off of it, and I was in LA, and I went on Joe Rogan's podcast, which is one of my favourite podcasts. I've listened to literally thousands of hours of Joe talking. And I can't remember if it was on the podcast or off the podcast, but he kind of just said to me, why do you do it for someone else? Like, why do you pour your heart into a show that's award-winning, but it's for someone else? And I didn't have an answer. So I kind of went back and I met with the XFM guys who were lovely and said, look, I think I want to start a podcast instead. And they were fine. And then, within 6 months, the podcast had grown to the biggest audience I'd ever had, hearing me talk. And just, it gave me that instant freedom that I've now not been able to walk away from or give up ever. I wanted it to be long-form interviews because I felt in the UK at that point there weren't a lot of podcasts in general, but equally radio and everything was going to such small sound bites. Like I'd do an interview to promote our new record, and it'd be a sound bite in the news section that's being played 5 times over the day, but it's tiny. It felt weird. So I wanted it to be long-form interviews with people similar to Joe Rogan, to Mark Maron, all these people in America who were doing it, but not over here. But then I thought, so I hit up Dan Lassac and asked him advice on kit, because I didn't have any kit, but he knows that kind of thing. So I got my setup, but then I decided again, before I announce it, I want to have at least 4 in the bag, because I wanted to do it weekly. I wanted to make sure I could do it weekly. So I recorded Zane Lowe, DJ Yoda, Russell Brand and Alan Moore. And once I had those 4 in, I released it and announced it, and it got to number 1 in the iTunes chart immediately and kind of blew up and went crazy. But that was kind of the key starting point, because it's now over 4 years on and I've not missed a Wednesday. There's not been a Wednesday in that time that there hasn't been a Distraction Pieces podcast. And there's often been 2 in a week. There's been a Friday or a Thursday episode. And it was key to kind of set up from the start that I'm going to get confident and then I'm going to show people what it is. 4 years down the line, the thing that kind of keeps me passionate is the fact that I've got sponsors who pay me loads of money to do a podcast. No, the exciting thing is now it's grown from being me hitting up my pals and people I know. I now get pitched people. I recorded one as we record this yesterday with Joe Cornish. I've not really met Joe, but he was brought to me. Tomorrow I'm recording with Mary J. Blige, who's a legend, and she was brought to me. And over the last few years, Michael Fassbender, Eddie Izzard, James McAvoy, Lena Headey, all these huge people, I was approached and asked if I would accept them on my podcast. And to me, it's mind-blowing, because for the first 3 years, I'm hustling to find anyone I can talk to that I think fits, to make sure I don't miss a week, to make sure I've got guests. And now I'm falling over guests and struggling to find the space to put them all out. So it's a great position to be in. I think the reason podcasts connect so much is it feels more personal. Radio is just on and everyone's listening at the same time. As stupid as that sounds, a podcast, you're the only one listening in that moment, in that exact second, if you know what I mean, because you've started it as you left the house after you'd gone back and realised you'd forgotten your lunch, and you have to go back and get... Do you know what I mean? There's such unique circumstances that put you in that moment. So it feels so personal and intimate, rather than feeling like it's just on TV and everyone's tuned in at the same time. I think that gives you that feeling that the podcasters are talking to you and you're sat there with them hearing this moment. So I listen to podcasts when travelling constantly. Long drives are not a big deal at all now, because I've got podcasts. Like at the moment, I'm genuinely dying for a long drive, because Joe Rogan has just said Professor Brian Cox, Travis Barker, Killer Mike, and TJ Dillashaw, all in a week or two's range, and they're all 3 hours long. So I need some long drives to get it listened to. So yeah, driving and travel, and sometimes exercise. Well, it's hard to pick one. I'm consciously not choosing anything on the network, despite, I mean, I would pick Films to be Buried with a hardcore listener, the two I listen to the most, but there's two. There's a podcast called Brian Gittins and Friends that I never miss a single episode. It's Brian Gittins and David Edwards with a different guest each week, and they come up with a bizarre situation that they pretend they're in, and they've got an amazing producer who then adds sound effects throughout. It's bizarre but hilarious. And then a new one that I've been listening to called Being Nobody, which is Alex Simwise, she used to have a game show on Radio 1, but she was also a model in Nuts and Zoo and Your Lads Mags and stuff like that. And she's writing an autobiography about being nobody, about her weird life of insignificance. But she's using the podcast as a kind of memory catalyst. So the first episode was her talking about what the first chapter is. But then she's interviewed her mum, and that was great. She's going to be interviewing the guy who was one of two twins who were her best friends at school, but she's not seen in 20 years. She'll be interviewing an ex-boyfriend from primary school or secondary school or whatever, and stuff like that, all to kind of compare her memory of events to their memory of events. And I'm finding it fascinating. But again, it's that key of she's just recording it on an iPhone at the moment. It's so lo-fi and low-key, but it's wonderfully engaging. So yeah, that's my two at the moment.